Enzo was furious. "Isn't that your father-in-law?" Charlie nodded. "Exactly. He's my father-in-law, not me. The person who broke it should be the one to pay for it." Enzo was annoyed, but what Charlie said made sense. He couldn't just force Charlie to pay. That would ruin the antique gallery's reputation. So he quickly ordered his staff, "Go get that old guy and bring him back here." Charlie watched them scramble to chase after Jacob and just chuckled to himself. He could have easily paid for it with his card, but why should he let his shameless father-in-law off the hook so easily? It was better to let the old man face the consequences. Otherwise, he'd just pull the same stunt again next time. All of the antique gallery's employees took off to catch Jacob. Now that he was alone, Charlie looked down at the broken vase on the floor. The vase was about 1.5 feet tall, and now it was shattered into 2 large pieces and a pile of smaller fragments. It was a real shame. But then he noticed something hidden inside the bottom half of the vase. He quickly reached in and pulled out a small wooden box. He couldn't believe it. There was a secret hidden inside the vase. The vase had a narrow neck and a wide body. The wooden box was clearly 2 or 3 times larger than the opening. It couldn't have been stuffed in later. It must have been placed inside when the vase was originally made. This meant the wooden box must have been from the Thompson period as well. He held the box in his hands, examining it carefully. With a bit of force, he popped it open with a soft click. As soon as the box opened, a strong, pleasant scent filled the air. Charlie took a deep breath and felt instantly refreshed. Looking closer, he saw a tiny, ancient book inside, no bigger than the palm of his hand. Charlie picked up the pocket-sized book and saw 4 ancient runes on the title page, spelling out the words, "Celestial Scriptures." "This title is pretty interesting. I wonder what's inside." Charlie opened the book to take a look. The first chapter was on medical arts, filled with countless case studies and treatment methods. Charlie frowned. He knew a little about holistic medicine and its basic principles, but the information in this book was clearly far more advanced than anything practiced today. Some of the diagnostic methods and treatments were completely unheard of. Towards the end of the medical arts chapter, Charlie even found sections on alchemy and potions with effects that seemed to defy modern science. Charlie was hooked. He sat right there on the floor, eagerly flipping through the pages. To his surprise, the esoteric scriptures also contained chapters on tarot card reading, various mystical techniques like treasure inspection and restoration, and a lot of other strange and wonderful things. Charlie read for a long time, feeling as if every word was being etched directly into his mind. His heart pounded with excitement. This was an incredible treasure. Charlie was ecstatic and quickly tried to tuck the mystic texts into his coat. But as he did, the book instantly turned to dust and vanished. However, every single word from the book was now perfectly etched into Charlie's mind. Just then, Jacob was dragged back in by a few big, tough-looking guys. The red, swollen marks on both sides of his face showed they hadn't been gentle. Seeing how pathetic he looked, Charlie had to fight back a laugh. This old fool gets himself into trouble and then tries to blame me for it. Letting him learn his lesson was the right punishment. Jacob was completely humiliated. He had tried to make a run for it and was totally out of breath. He was old, out of shape, and couldn't run fast. How could he possibly outrun these younger guys? So after just a few steps, they caught him, tied him up, and slapped him around a few times. He looked absolutely miserable. The men dragged Jacob back in front of Enzo, who gritted his teeth and snarled, "You old goat! You think you can break our vase and just run off? You're not going to stiff the antique gallery." Jacob, terrified, stammered, "I didn't mean to. The vase was just too slippery." Enzo shot back coldly, "Cut the crap. I'll give you until this afternoon to get the money. If you can't pay up, I'm calling the cops and reporting you for intentional destruction of property. A case worth over $5 million is enough to put you in prison for a long time." Jacob was trembling with fear. He looked at Charlie like he was his last hope. "Charlie, my dear son-in-law, you have to save me. I'm ruined." Charlie said helplessly, "Dad, I don't have that kind of money." Jacob blurted out, "Then you can go to jail for me. Our family has taken care of you for this long. It's time you paid us back." Charlie was stunned. How could the man have the nerve to say something like that? Just as he was about to refuse, Enzo stepped in. The one who did the crime does the time. The antique gallery is an honest business. You broke the vase, so you have to be the one to pay for it. Then he turned to Charlie. "You're free to go, but it would be wise to help him get the money together. Otherwise, this afternoon, I'm turning him over to the police." Charlie gave a slight nod. Jacob, terrified, started crying. "My dear son-in-law, you can't just leave me here. What am I going to do if you go?" Seeing him so scared, Charlie found it hard not to laugh. But of course, he couldn't let it show on his face. He was about to make an excuse to go raise money and let the old man stew in his own mess for a while. But then he remembered the ancient method for repairing porcelain he had just read about in the book. He had an idea. "Mr. Zimmerman, if I can fix that antique porcelain vase, will you let him go?" Enzo scoffed. "And who do you think you are? You think you can just restore antiques? For your information, I've already sent photos to the top New York antique experts." Charlie just shook his head. "The vase is already broken, so it's useless as it is. What have you got to lose by letting me try? I won't make it any worse." Enzo sneered dismissively. "Fine, be my guest. I'd love to see what a clown like you can do." Charlie said, "Get me a sheet of vellum, a fine brush, and 5 eggs. And make sure the eggs are raw." Enzo, eager to see Charlie make a fool of himself, quickly found a basket of raw eggs for him. But he couldn't help but taunt him. "Using eggs to repair a historical artifact? I've never heard of anything so ridiculous. I'm warning you, don't try any funny business. Either you pay up, or we're taking your father-in-law to court. $5 million is enough to put him away for life." Charlie nodded. "And what if I do fix it?" Enzo scoffed coldly. "If you can actually fix it, and I mean really fix it, so that experts agree most of its value is restored, then you can walk out of here." "Okay," Charlie nodded. "You've got a deal." Without another word, he picked up the fine brush and drew the outline of the antique porcelain vase on the vellum. Then he cracked an egg, making a small opening. He dipped his index finger in the egg white, carefully coated a shard of the vase with it, and pressed it onto the outline on the paper. He did this again and again, piece by piece. Slowly, the vase began to take shape on the vellum model. Everyone watched in silence, afraid to break his concentration. Soon, half an hour passed. When Charlie finally stood up, a Thompson period antique porcelain vase that looked brand new sat before them. He smiled at Enzo. "Go ahead. See if you can find a single flaw." Enzo picked up the vase, turning it over and over in his hands. Then he said with a, "Are you kidding me? You just glued it together with egg whites, and you call that a repair? Maybe I should break your leg and try gluing it back together with egg. How about that?" "Don't you dare touch that vase!" A sharp, urgent voice cut through the room from the doorway. A moment later, a stunning woman in a chic white pantsuit walked in. She had a gorgeous face and a tall, flawless figure, standing close to 5 feet 7 inches. She carried herself with an air of pure luxury. Her beautiful eyes scanned the room, filled with an icy, regal confidence, like an ice queen. The second Enzo saw her, the color drained from his face. He quickly bowed his head respectfully. "Miss, what brings you here?" The visitor was none other than the true owner of the antique gallery, Warnia Smith, the eldest daughter of the Smith family, one of the most powerful families in Oris Hill. Warnia, her voice sharp with anger. If I hadn't shown up, you probably would have burned this whole place to the ground. What is going on? Enzo gave a pained smile and quickly explained. A customer was looking at the vase and accidentally broke it. His son-in-law tried to fix it with an egg. I was just about to tell him that a repair like this is worthless and that we needed to discuss compensation. Warnia leaned over the antique porcelain vase, examining it closely. After a moment, her expression changed dramatically. She spun on Enzo, her voice sharp. Let go of that now! Who told you it was okay to touch it? You have no idea what you're doing. Enzo was completely stunned. Miss, I don't understand. Warnia snapped. This is a newly restored historical artifact. Until the restoration has fully set, no one is supposed to touch it except the expert who fixed it. Don't you know that basic rule? Enzo stammered. But he just used egg whites to glue it back together. How is that a real repair? Warnia's eyes flashed with anger. You fool! She scolded. With this repair, the vase's value would have at least doubled. But because you put your greasy hands all over it, you've just cost us at least $2 million. Pack your things. You're fired. I don't want to see you here tomorrow. She remembered seeing a similar porcelain plate at an auction in San Francisco. The plate's history was fascinating. It was an antique porcelain piece from the Thompson period that had been broken during a later period. But master craftsmen from that time had repaired it using this very same technique. And because this repair method was so incredibly rare and was thought to be lost to history, the plate sold for a staggering $13 million, far more than its original value. Now this vase had been repaired by Charlie using that same lost technique. Its value was about to skyrocket. Enzo's face went pale. He couldn't believe that just by touching the antique porcelain vase, he had cost the gallery a fortune and lost his job. Warnia then asked, "Where is the man who repaired this antique porcelain vase? Take me to him." I didn't catch your full name. Would you be willing to leave your contact information so we can stay in touch? With that, Warnia took out her business card and handed it to him. Sir, this is my card. Please take it. Charlie nodded, taking the card. My name is Charlie Wade, he said simply. But I don't have a business card. That's perfectly fine, Warnia said. Would it be convenient for you to leave your phone number? Charlie figured it couldn't hurt to know more people. This Warnia seemed very polite and humble, not at all arrogant or pushy, and he found her pleasant. So he and Warnia exchanged phone numbers. Warnia then said, Mr. Charlie, would you like me to arrange a car to take you both home? Charlie waved his hand. No, thank you. We drove here. Warnia nodded. In that case, I'll walk you out. Afterward, Warnia escorted the two men to their car. She watched as Charlie drove away before slowly walking back into the antique gallery. As Charlie drove, his father-in-law couldn't help but ask, Charlie, where did you learn how to restore historical artifacts like that? Of course, Charlie couldn't tell him the truth, that he'd found a book of mystic knowledge inside the very vase he'd broken. The book was too incredible, filled with so much information that he still needed time to process it all. It was a secret he couldn't share with anyone. So he said casually, I learned it from one of the janitors at the orphanage. Jacob nodded. Wow, that's incredibly lucky. If you didn't know how to do that, I'd probably be on my way to jail right now. Then Jacob quickly added, Oh, and another thing. You can't tell your mother-in-law about any of this, you understand? Charlie nodded. I know, Dad. Jacob let out a long sigh of relief, rubbing his face. He said with annoyance, If I'd known you had that skill, I never would have run. I was exhausted, and I got slapped a few times. Man, what terrible luck! After a moment, he asked Charlie, "Can you still see the mark on my face?" Charlie said, "There's still a little redness." Jacob, "If your mother-in-law asks when we get home, just tell her I accidentally walked into a telephone pole." When they got home, Charlie was about to head to the grocery store to pick up something for dinner. He called Claire to ask what she wanted to eat, but she told him she was meeting with Doris about a construction plan that evening. Doris was treating her to dinner at the Grand group. A moment later, Doris also sent him a text message. "Mr. Wade, your wife is about to get very busy with work here, so she might not be around as much for a little while. Please don't mind." Charlie wasn't an unreasonable guy. He knew business was important, so he replied, "Just make sure the company food is good. Don't let her just eat takeout." Doris replied right away, "Don't worry, I'll have our executive dining room prepare the best dinner for her." "Okay, thank you." Since his wife wasn't coming home for dinner, Charlie didn't stress about it. He bought some groceries and went home to make a simple meal for Jacob and Elaine. After dinner, the older couple went out to a public Zumba class. Charlie was home alone, his mind still on the mysterious contents of the Book of Mystic Knowledge. Just then, he got a call from Darren. He didn't really want to answer. The guy had been completely obsessed, and when Charlie had tried to warn him, Darren had gotten angry and blown him off, which had really frustrated Charlie. But thinking about it, he felt sorry for the guy. So Charlie answered the phone. "Is something wrong?" On the other end of the line, Darren was, "Charlie, my friend, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have blamed you." Charlie heard how hard he was crying and felt a pang of sympathy. "So you know the truth now?" he asked. Darren cried, "After we talked, the more I thought about it, the more something felt wrong. I used the location tracker on her phone and found a mansion. I knocked on the door and went in to confront them. The guy, his driver, and the housekeeper all beat me up. An ambulance had to take me to the hospital." At this, Darren completely broke down. "Charlie, man, I was so blind. I'm sorry I blamed you. Please don't be mad at me. You're my only real friend. If you turn your back on me, I'll have nothing left here in Oris Hill." Charlie sighed. "I don't blame you," he said. "Which hospital are you in?" "I'm at City General Hospital," Darren said. "He hit my leg with a baseball bat. The doctor said I can't get out of bed for a while. I grabbed that painting you gave me when I went after them. Can you please take it to a pawn shop for me? I sank all my money into that restaurant and now I'm broke. I can't even pay for my treatment." Hearing this, Charlie immediately asked, "The guys who beat you up, didn't they pay your medical bills?" "No." "Did you call the police?" "I did, but it's useless. The cops said since I broke into their house, their beating me up counts as self-defense." "That's insane," Charlie said furiously. "You just wait. I'm on my way." At City General Hospital, Darren was lying on a bed in the emergency department. He was covered in bruises, and his right leg was in a cast. He looked absolutely miserable. Charlie couldn't help but feel for him. Here was a guy who got played by a woman, and as a result, he didn't just get his heart broken, he got beaten up too. When Darren saw him come in, his eyes already swollen, filled with tears. "Charlie?" He couldn't help but cry as soon as he spoke. Charlie walked over to him and said gently, "Hey, it's okay. She's not worth all this sadness." Darren cried and said, "I went after her for 3 years. For her, I had no self-respect. I was basically her doormat. I thought it would all be worth it in the end, but I never expected it to end like this. Now I have nothing." He choked on his sobs and continued, "That girl, she doesn't just want to break up with me. She wants to kick me out with nothing. Most of the money I've earned these past few years I spent on her. The $100,000 deposit was also invested in the hotel. But she doesn't even want to pay me back. I was so blind. How could I have liked such a terrible woman?" Charlie tried to reason with him. "Darren, A real man knows how to get back up when he's knocked down. What about that painting I gave you? That thing could sell for at least $200,000, which is enough for you to start a small business again. Darren nodded. I've got it right here with me. It's a good thing you reminded me, so I brought it. Otherwise, she definitely would have taken it. Charlie said, Good. As long as you still have it, you just lie down and try to relax. I'll go buy you some snacks and pay the hospital bill while I'm at it. Darren was moved to tears. Charlie, you're a true friend. Thank you so much. Don't worry, I'll pay you back, Charlie said softly. Hey, we're friends. Don't worry about it. After he spoke, he left the ward. He had been in such a rush earlier that he hadn't thought to bring anything. Seeing Darren in such a pitiful state, Charlie couldn't stand it. He went and bought him some fruit, and then swiped his card to pay a $100,000 deposit for the hospital stay. When he returned to the ward, Charlie saw that the door had been pushed open. As he got closer, he saw Aria standing in front of Darren's bed, her arm wrapped around Logan. Seeing the two of them, Darren yelled, "What are you doing here? Did you come to laugh at me?" Aria sneered. "Who doesn't see you as a total joke?" After saying that, she spat on the ground and then demanded, "I'm here for the painting. Where did you hide it? Give it to me now." Darren said angrily, "Aria, my friend gave me that painting. What do you want with it?" To you?" Aria scoffed. "Get real. Why do you think Charlie gave us that painting? It was a gift for the restaurant's grand opening. And whose restaurant is it? It belongs to my dad." Darren couldn't believe how shameless she was, and his voice trembled with anger. "Aria, don't push it. Your restaurant still has the $100,000 I invested, and you need to give that back to me. As for the painting, it was a gift to me from my friend. You understand? To me." Aria said with contempt, "Cut the crap. The restaurant has nothing to do with you. I won't give you a single penny. The painting belongs to the restaurant. If you don't bring it out, I'll call the police right now and say you stole it from my restaurant." Logan, who was standing beside her, also sneered. "Hey, pal, I suggest you learn your place. I have connections in Oris Hill you can't even imagine. If you don't hand over that painting, all I have to do is make one call to the police. They'll arrest you on the spot. A theft of $200,000 is enough to put you in prison for 10 years. Tears streamed down Darren's face as he looked at Aria. "I did my best for you all these years. I gave you everything I could. Even if you don't appreciate it, you don't have to be like this, right?" Aria said dismissively. "Appreciate it? Who are you? Let me tell you, I never liked you. You're not worthy of me. Only a real man like Logan is." Logan smiled and added, "I forgot to tell you, Aria and I get along great in bed." Aria said shyly, "Oh, Logan, why are you talking about this? You're making me blush." "Blush?" Logan laughed. "Why don't we close the door and give this loser a little show? Show him how you take care of me." Aria gasped. "Oh no, that's too shameful." Darren couldn't stand it anymore. He grabbed the pillow and threw it at them, yelling, "You two are sick. Get out of my sight." Logan caught the pillow and snorted coldly. "I'm warning you. If you don't hand over the painting, I will break your other leg and have you thrown in jail." Having heard this from outside, Charlie suddenly walked into the ward and shouted angrily, "You dare threaten my friend? You must have a death wish." Logan turned his head, looked at Charlie, and asked, "Who are you?" Aria said, "This is Charlie, the one who gave him the painting." Logan laughed loudly. "Oh, so that's who it is. It's the famous loser who lives off his wife. Everyone in Oris Hill knows about you." After that, Logan looked at Charlie coldly and said, "I'll give you 3 seconds to get out. I can pretend I never saw you." Charlie said with a sneer, "Make me get out? And who do you think you are?" Logan gritting his teeth and said, "Punk, you dare to act tough in front of me? Charlie said coldly. I don't care who you are. You've made me very upset today. I'll give you one chance. Kneel on the ground and apologize to my friend, and then let my friend break one of your legs. Otherwise, you're going to die an ugly death. Hearing this, Logan let out a short, "Huh." Then his expression hardened, and he said coldly, What are you talking about? You want me to kneel? You must be tired of living. Arya couldn't help but mocking him from the side. Charlie, are you stupid? Trying to threaten Logan? Do you think you have a long life ahead of you? Charlie said coldly, Don't talk to me, you piece of trash. You? Arya was suddenly furious and said to Logan, Honey, he dared to insult me? Get someone to handle him. I want to tear his mouth off. Logan gritted teeth and said, You don't know what's good for you. I'll call someone to kill you. Just you wait. Charlie, when he heard this, and said, Good, because if you don't kill me, you and this filthy woman next to you will both die miserably. Logan immediately made a call and said, Hey, 7 brothers, I'm at City General Hospital right now. Bring a few of the guys over. I've got some punk I need you to handle. Charlie didn't call, but instead sent a text message directly to Orville. Come to City General Hospital. Someone here wants to kill me. Orville called back immediately and blurted out, Mr. Charlie, what idiot has a death wish and is trying to mess with you? Charlie said calmly, Cut the chatter and just get over here. Orville immediately said, Mr. Charlie, don't you worry. I'm on my way. When Logan saw that Charlie was also on the phone, he sneered. What? You think you can call for backup too? Charlie sneered and said, I told you, you're going to die a miserable death. Logan acted like he'd just heard the funniest joke. He sneered, Are you out of your mind? In all of Oris Hill, the man who could make me die miserably hasn't even been born yet. Darren, lying on the hospital bed, struggled to sit up and said anxiously, Charlie, you have to go, now. Don't mess with this guy. You can't handle him. Charlie walked up to him, pushed him gently back onto the bed, and said lightly, Just lie down. Darren said urgently, You don't know who Logan is. His family is really powerful in Oris Hill. Charlie peeled an orange, stuffed a piece into Darren's mouth, and said, The person I can't afford to offend hasn't been born yet. Arya laughed and said, Oh my God, you're all talk. Do you have any idea what Logan's family does? Charlie said, I don't know what his family does. I only know he's going to regret the rest of his life. After a moment, he added, Oh, and you too. Arya's face immediately darkened. Fine. Since you have a death wish, just wait. Charlie then turned to Darren and asked, Does Arya's father know you got beat up? He knows, Darren said. I called him. Charlie nodded and asked, What did he say? Darren looked furious and said, He said it's a matter for you young people to handle, and he can't get involved. It basically means he wants nothing to do with me. Charlie asked again, So what about that $100,000 you invested in the restaurant? Did you ask for it back? Yeah. Darren's face twisted with anger, and he gritted his teeth. That old man actually said the $100,000 wasn't an investment, but a gift to his future son-in-law. Then he told me I wasn't qualified anymore and he wouldn't give it back. That's insane. Charlie snorted. No wonder he has a daughter like her. He's a total scumbag. Charlie, what did you just say? Arya suddenly got angry and blurted out, How dare you insult my dad? You must have a death wish, don't you? She shook Logan's arm frantically, pleading, Honey, he just insulted my dad. You have to beat him up for me. Logan was a typical playboy, not very tall and in average shape at best. Standing in front of Charlie, he looked a good head shorter. On top of that, Charlie did all sorts of chores at home every day, kept a regular schedule, and was in excellent physical condition. If he tried to fight Charlie, there was no way he'd win. What's more, Charlie had studied martial arts with his father when he was a kid. After his parents passed away, he kept up his training in the orphanage. It was because of the fighting skills he had mastered since childhood that nobody dared to bully him in the orphanage. So, if a fight really broke out, it wouldn't matter if it was just Logan or 5 guys just like him. They wouldn't stand a chance against Charlie. Logan knew this deep down. If he started something now, he wouldn't gain a thing and would probably just get beaten up again. So he gently touched Arya's hand and comforted her. "Babe, don't worry. I've already called my guys. Just wait. When they get here, I'll have him taken care of." Charlie then sent a text message to Isaac. "What's the deal with a guy named Logan Weaver in Oris Hill?" Isaac quickly replied. His family's business is mostly in emerald investors and pawn auctions, so they have some influence. "Did he cross you?" "Yeah," Charlie replied in a message. "I've already asked Orville to come over, but I need you to do something for me too." Isaac replied immediately. "Mr. Wade, just tell me what you need," Charlie said. "I want you to bring Logan's father to City General Hospital. Also, find an old guy in Oris Hill who does artifact authentication. His name is Orion Hughes. Bring them both to me." Isaac immediately replied. "Okay, sir, I'll bring them to you myself," Charlie said. "You don't need to show your face. Just send someone else to do it. I don't want people knowing we're connected." "Okay, sir. Should I have my guys teach those 2 old guys a lesson?" Charlie said. "Just grab them first. We'll deal with them when they get here." "Understood, sir. Whatever you say. I'll give the order right away." Putting his phone away, Charlie looked at Logan and Arya and said coldly, "They say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I'm going to have your fathers come over here, and we'll have a little chat about how they raised you two." Logan's face darkened. "Listen, punk, you better quit while you're ahead. When my guys get here, you're dead." Charlie snorted. "Tell your guys to hurry up. I'm getting impatient." Logan was about to hurl another insult at Charlie when the ward door was kicked open. A burly-looking guy rushed in, followed by 7 or 8 other men. When Logan saw him, he immediately pointed at Charlie and shouted, "Quentin, it's this punk! Help me take him out!" Quentin frowned and said coldly, "You're the one messing with my friend." Charlie smiled faintly, nodded, and said, "What about it? Are you going to stick up for him?" Quentin eyed him with suspicion. This kid was standing right in front of him, totally calm. He'd never seen him before and didn't know who he was. But why wasn't he the least bit scared? So he asked, cautiously, "Kid, where do you come from?" Charlie said, "This city is my home." Logan quickly chimed in. "Quentin, he's just some live-in son-in-law, a total freeloader." Then he leaned in and whispered in his ear, "This guy's a nobody. You can go all out on him, don't worry. I'll take care of any fallout." "A kept man," Quentin grinned. "All right, let's mess up that face of his. We'll see how he freeloads after that." Without waiting for Charlie to respond, he waved to the men behind him. "Get him." Logan looked at Charlie and sneered. "Any last words, Charlie?" Charlie ignored him, looked at Quentin, and said calmly, "Meal, and I'll let you live." Quentin was stunned. He cupped his ear, frowned, and asked, "What did you just say?" "Say it again. I guarantee you won't be leaving here in one piece tonight." Just then, a booming voice echoed from outside the door. "Hey, punk! Charlie told you to kneel. Are you deaf?" Quentin's expression froze. It was Orville Hudson. He never expected him to show up. The moment he finished speaking, Orville burst in with Blake and dozens of other men. The second he was inside, he barked at Blake, "Seal the door! Nobody else gets in!" Blake nodded immediately. "Got it, boss." Quentin stared at Orville, completely stunned. His mind went blank. Orville Hudson, the kingpin of Oris Hill City's underworld. Quentin was just a small-time local boss, but Orville was the king of the entire street scene. Everyone on the streets had to pay their respects to him. He never would have dreamed that coming to help Logan with some minor issue would bring Orville himself into the picture. Logan didn't recognize Orville. Seeing Quentin's terrified expression, he frowned and asked, "Quentin, what's going on?" "Who's this old dude?" The words were barely out of his mouth when Quentin started trembling with shock and fear. He grabbed Logan by the hair and slammed a fist into his face, breaking his nose. Quentin gritted his teeth and cursed, "You idiot! Don't drag me down with you if you want to die. That's Orville Hudson." "What?" Logan was suddenly terrified. Orville? The kingpin of Oris Hill City's underworld? Why was he here? Just then, Orville strode over, his face grim, and kicked Quentin right in the groin. The kick sent a jolt of searing pain through him, and he dropped to his knees, his face turning ghost white. Orville glared down at him and said coldly, "You dared to provoke Mr. Charlie. Are you tired of living?" After saying that, Orville turned to Charlie, looking ashamed. "Mr. Charlie, I'm late. Please forgive me." The immense respect Orville showed Charlie stunned everyone there. Logan finally realized just who he'd provoked, and he started shaking with fear. Charlie nodded at Orville, then pointed to Quentin. "You know this guy?" Orville replied, "I know him. He's just some small-timer who was stupid enough to cross you, Mr. Charlie. Just say the word and I'll handle it." Charlie nodded. "He's a real piece of work. The second he walked in, he was talking about taking me out. A guy like that is a menace to society. Make sure he regrets this for the rest of his life." Quentin was suddenly terrified. He made his living through brawling and intimidation. If he was really injured, how could he ever run the streets again? His life would be over. He was already on the ground, but he scrambled over to Charlie on his knees, crying, "Mr. Charlie, I didn't know who you were. Please, forgive me. I'll never cross you again." Charlie said coldly, "I already gave you a chance. You didn't take it." Just moments ago, he thought Charlie was a dead man walking, but now he realized he was the one who was dead. Panicking, he started banging his head on the floor, sobbing, "Mr. Charlie, please, just one more chance. Spare me." Charlie ignored him. He looked at Orville and asked, "Well, what are you waiting for?" Orville snapped out of it and quickly ordered, "Get over here. Break his kneecaps." Immediately, several of his men rushed forward, grabbed Quentin, and slammed him face down onto the floor. Just then, Blake pulled out an iron rod and stepped forward. Quentin tried to beg for mercy, but Blake swung the rod high over his head and brought it crashing down. An injury like that, there's no coming back from it. Quentin was screaming in pain, but Charlie said, "That's not enough." Blake nodded, raised the bar, and smashed it onto Quentin's left knee. "Ah!" Quentin writhed on the floor in agony, his body convulsing. Orville said to Blake, "Gag him. I don't want his noise bothering Mr. Charlie." "Right, boss." Blake immediately shoved a wad of gauze into Quentin's mouth and left him on the floor, curled up like a stray dog. Logan was already pale with terror. He finally understood just who he had messed with. Before Charlie even had to say anything, he dropped to his knees and started banging his head on the floor. "Mr. Charlie, I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so disrespectful. Please, have mercy on me." Arya was just as terrified. Seeing Logan on his knees begging, she dropped to the floor too, bowing her head and apologizing over and over. Charlie said, "You too. Do you really think begging for mercy is going to get me to let you go? You're both stupid and naive." The two of them trembled. Just then, a few men in black walked in, dragging two older, middle-aged people who were tied up. Both of them were bruised and bleeding, clearly having been beaten up. They threw the two people to the ground and bowed to Charlie. "Mr. Charlie, we brought the people you wanted." Logan and Arya looked over and almost passed out from shock. The two older men on the ground were Logan's father, Marcus, and Arya's father, Orion. Charlie had his men splash cold water on Marcus and Orion's faces to wake them up. Then he turned to Orion. "Mr. Hughes, your daughter is a cheater who goes around sleeping with other men behind her fiancé's back. Did you know about this?" Orion was terrified. He'd been beaten up before they even brought him in. He knew his daughter had caused some serious trouble. So to save his own skin, he shook his head frantically. "I don't know." Charlie nodded. "You don't know? That means you failed as a father. You weren't paying attention. Blake, break his left knee, just like you did to that piece of trash over there." "You got it." Blake immediately ordered the men around him. "Hold him down." Orion screamed in terror. "No! Help me!" Arya shrieked. "Dad!" Blake didn't hesitate. Orion felt a pain so bad he wished he were dead. His knee was completely destroyed. There was no way he'd ever recover from that. Then Charlie asked again. "I'll ask you one more time. Your daughter sleeps around and cheats on her fiancé. Did you know about this?" Orion cried out. "I know. It's my fault. I didn't raise her right. I'll be stricter with her from now on." Charlie scoffed. "So you knew, but you didn't do anything to stop it. You knew your daughter was messing up, but you didn't bother to teach her right from wrong. That means you have no morals yourself, and you enabled her bad behavior." After he finished speaking, he yelled at Blake, "Break his other leg!" Orion couldn't believe it. Admitting he was wrong hadn't worked. Charlie still wasn't going to let him off the hook. He was so terrified he passed out. But Blake's iron bar woke him right back up with a jolt of agonizing pain. Orion had lived a long life. Why was he suffering like this now? He was sobbing uncontrollably. "Mr. Charlie, I really know I was wrong. From now on, I'll be strict with that ungrateful daughter of mine. I'll never let her do something so hurtful again," Charlie said dismissively. "You're pretty good at passing the blame, aren't you?" Those words made Orion tremble instantly. Charlie asked sharply, "Mr. Hughes, let me ask you something. My friend invested $100,000 in your restaurant. Why didn't you pay him back? Why did you lie and say my friend disrespected you?" Orion's face went white. He quickly said, "I was wrong. I was greedy and shameless. I really know I was wrong." Then he looked over at Darren, who was fuming on the bed, and pleaded, "Darren, I must have lost my mind. Don't worry, I'll pay you back that $100,000 with interest. Please, ask Mr. Charlie to have some pity on me. These old bones of mine can't take this kind of punishment." Charlie looked at Darren and asked, "Are you going to step in for him?" Darren shook his head firmly. "No, I won't help any of them." "Good," Charlie nodded, satisfied. "You've still got a spine." Then he turned back to the desperate Orion and said, "Not only are you a terrible father, but you're also disrespectful. And you tried to steal all the money my friend saved up over the last few years. How are you any different from scum?" Orion shivered with fear, crying and wailing. "Mr. Charlie, I'm a monster. I'm not even human. I deserve to die. Forgive me, please. I'm begging you. I'll be your slave for the rest of my life. I'll call you Master. Master Wade, just please forgive me." Charlie sneered. "Forgive you? You may be ugly, but you sure have some beautiful dreams." Then he said to Blake, "Break his right hand for me. Let's see if he dares to snatch other people's things after this." Orion cried out in despair. "No, Mr. Charlie, no!" Blake brought the iron bar down hard. "Ah, my hand!" Charlie said to Blake, "Gag him and toss him aside." "Got it." Blake immediately shoved something in his mouth and threw him over with Quentin. Arya was so scared she was losing her mind. So was Logan. And Logan's father, Marcus Weaver, was just as terrified. He looked at Logan. slapped him hard across the face, and yelled, "You damn idiot! Who told you to go messing around like this? You're going to get me killed!" Charlie looked at Marcus with a smile and asked, "What's this? Your son got together with my friend's fiancé and cheated on him? Are you telling me you didn't know about it, as his father?" Marcus was crying with fear. He didn't know how to answer. He had just seen the lesson Orion learned. He knew the drill. If he said he knew, his right leg would be broken. If he said he didn't know, his left leg would be broken. Seeing that he was too scared to answer, Charlie said directly to Blake, "This old guy seems pretty clever. He thinks he can get out of this by staying quiet. Blake, go ahead and break both his legs." "Yes, Mr. Charlie." Charlie looked at the panicked Marcus Dixon and said coldly, "You can thank your son for this." A moment later, following two desperate screams, Marcus's legs were completely broken. Seeing his father's state, Logan completely lost it. A warm, foul-smelling liquid soaked the front of his pants. He had wet himself out of sheer terror. Charlie smiled coldly. "Well, it looks like you really have no self-control. Everything that's happened today is because you couldn't keep it in your pants. I don't think you should be allowed to keep it anymore." After he finished speaking, he told Blake, "Make sure he can never be whole again." A flicker of shock crossed Blake's face. As a man himself, he couldn't help but flinch when he heard that command. Orville immediately yelled, "What are you spacing out for? Hurry up and do what Mr. Charlie said." Blake snapped out of it and ordered the men around him. "Hold the punk's legs apart." Logan was desperate, crying loudly, "Mr. Charlie, please forgive me. You can break my arms and legs. Please just don't do that." Charlie smiled. "You think this is a choice between your arms and legs and that? You're wrong. This isn't an either-or question. You're not getting out of either one." A moment later, Blake lifted his foot and stomped down hard. In that instant, Logan's scream tore through the air, echoing with the weight of consequences he'd never forget. But it wasn't over yet. Following Charlie's orders, Blake then broke his arms and legs. The arrogant Logan, who cheated on others and even beat a man into the hospital, was now completely broken, in more ways than one. But no one felt sorry for him. Everything that happened to him today, he brought on himself. Now, only Arya was left untouched. By now, Arya was on the verge of a breakdown. She scrambled on her knees to the hospital bed, grabbing Darren's hand. Crying, she pleaded, "Darren, my love, I'm so sorry. I never should have betrayed you. I really do love you, but I was taken advantage of by Logan. He took pictures of me. I had no choice. I was at his mercy." Logan yelled furiously, "Arya, how dare you lie about me? It was you and your dad who came to me at the shop. You saw my family had money, and you went after me, throwing yourself at me. There's no other way we would have ever gotten together." Then, crying, he turned to Charlie and said, "Mr. Charlie, don't believe her lies. I've got the chat history. She added me on socials and told me she fell in love with me at first sight. She's the one who sent me all the messages. She sent me private photos and close-ups to seduce me. The pictures are in my photo album. You can check my phone and see for yourself." Arya's face went white. She shot back, "Logan, you promised you'd delete those photos after you looked at them." Logan gritted his teeth. "You're a real snake, trying to set me up. Good thing I didn't listen to you and saved the photos, or you would have totally screwed me over." Arya quickly turned back to Darren. "My love, I was just confused for a little while. For the sake of all our years together, please forgive me." Charlie asked Darren, "What do you think?" Darren glanced at Arya, pushed her hand away, and said flatly, "I don't know this woman." Arya completely broke down, collapsing and crying. Charlie said, "In that case, break her legs, and then mess up her face so she won't be showing up anywhere for a while. Charlie didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy for Arya, this vicious, cheating woman. Blake immediately did as he was told. He even took a pair of medical scissors and chopped off her hair. And just like that, all 5 of them had paid a painful price. Charlie had his men drag all 5 of them up and said coldly, "Today, I've spared you 5 animals, but if any of you dare to breathe a word about what happened here, I will kill your entire family. Understand?" The 5 of them immediately nodded frantically. They were lucky just to be alive. There was no way they would dare to disobey Charlie. Seeing that the 5 of them were thoroughly intimidated, Charlie nodded in satisfaction. He turned to Arya's father, Orion, and said, "You cheated my friend, so you're going to pay the price. Tomorrow, you will sign the restaurant over to him. Then you and your daughter will get out. Do you understand?" Orion nodded furiously. "I understand. I'll be out of there by tomorrow." Charlie then turned to Logan's father, Marcus. "Your son messed around with my friend's girl and put him in the hospital. You will pay my friend $2 million in damages tomorrow, not a penny less. Do you understand?" Marcus quickly replied, "Mr. Charlie, I'll get you the money tomorrow." Only then was Charlie satisfied. He said to Orville's men, "All right, take out the trash." A group of men immediately dragged the 5 people out of the room. After they were gone, Charlie said to Blake, "Blake, you did a good job this time." Blake smiled and said quickly, "Mr. Charlie, I was just doing my job." Charlie said casually, "I'll have someone transfer $2 million to your account as a reward." Blake was ecstatic and bowed his head. "Thank you, Mr. Charlie." Although he'd made a lot of money working for Orville, he was definitely not this generous. He would never hand out $2 million just like that. Charlie sent a quick text to Isaac, asking him to transfer the money to Blake. Even though he had plenty of money in his own account, it wasn't the right time or place to be making the transfer himself. A minute later, the money appeared in Blake's account. Blake was so excited that he kept thanking Charlie. Charlie then said to Orville, "You must not look down on these $2 million. Orville said quickly, "Mr. Charlie, it's an honor to take care of things for you." Charlie nodded slightly. "I'll remember this favor, and I'll give you a chance to move up in the world." Hearing this, Orville immediately dropped to his knees in front of Charlie. For Orville, it wasn't about the money. It was about climbing to a higher level. But for a man like him, moving up was incredibly difficult. He had always tried to get in good with Isaac Craven, but Isaac never gave him the time of day because his street background was too rough and dirty. Now, with just a word from Charlie, it was very likely that Isaac would give him a hand, helping him finally make a real move up in the world. After settling the business, Charlie turned to Darren and asked, "Are you satisfied with how things turned out today?" Darren was in complete shock. He truly couldn't understand how Charlie had become so powerful. Even the undisputed kingpin of Oris Hill was kneeling before him. He was stunned for a long moment before he finally snapped out of it and said quickly, "Satisfied. I'm satisfied." Charlie said, "I got the restaurant back for you, and I also got you $2 million for your troubles. The rest is up to you now." Darren immediately replied, "Charlie, I'll do anything for you from now on to repay your kindness. Whatever you ask me to do, I'll do it. No questions asked." Charlie nodded. "You should focus on healing first. Once you're recovered, run the restaurant well. If I need you for anything, I'll let you know." Darren said, "I'll be ready whenever you need me." Charlie added, "Oh, and one more thing. You can't tell anyone about what happened today. I don't want people to know who I am. Understand?" Darren nodded quickly. "I understand. Don't worry. I'll take this secret to my grave." Charlie grunted in acknowledgement. "I'll arrange for a couple of nurses to look after you. Take care of yourself. I'm leaving now." Back home, Charlie didn't tell his wife Claire what happened. He still didn't want his wife to know too much. For her, the less she knew, the safer she'd be. The next day, while he was out grocery shopping, he got a call. He picked it up and saw it was from Warnia, the owner of the antique gallery and a daughter of the Smith family. Charlie couldn't help but wonder what Warnia wanted with him. He answered, and Warnia's voice came through. "Mr. Charlie, I'm so sorry to bother you. I know this is out of the blue." Charlie asked instinctively, "Is there something wrong with the jar I repaired?" Warnia replied quickly, "Oh no, not at all. I'm calling about something else." Charlie grunted. "Go on." Warnia said, "Well, I've had my eye on something recently, but I'm not completely sure about it. You know so much about antiques, so I was hoping you could come take a look and help me out." Charlie wasn't really interested in appraising antiques, but now that he had a few treasures of his own that seemed to hold some kind of spiritual energy, he was curious. He asked, "Can you tell me what it is?" Warnia replied, "It's an ancient jade. The seller claims that if you wear it, it brings peace of mind, good luck, and protects you from harm." Charlie's mind started racing. The mystic texts he had stumbled upon mentioned things with spiritual power. A treasure like that, one that actually contained spiritual energy, would be incredibly valuable to people. He wanted to see if something like that could really exist, so he agreed. "Okay, I can go with you." Warnia said, "Thank you, Mr. Charlie. I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning." "Sounds good." After hanging up, Charlie thought to himself, things for interior design were one thing, but antiques that supposedly calm your nerves and bring good luck were really popular with the rich. He figured he should connect with more of these people in the future and see what opportunities came up. Early the next morning, Warnia drove over to pick up Charlie right on time. After Charlie got in the car, Warnia said, "Mr. Charlie, I'm heading out to buy this ancient jade today, but a few other people in Oris Hill are also interested. I'm afraid the competition is going to be fierce." Charlie nodded and said casually, "It doesn't matter how many people are there. What matters is the item itself. If it's the real deal, you shouldn't worry about the competition. I have faith in your family's influence, Miss Smith. If you really want a treasure, don't hold back." Warnia smiled faintly. "Mr. Charlie, you know what they say. There's always a bigger fish. Even in a place like Oris Hill, there are some real heavy hitters hiding in the shadows. I don't know how many people are more powerful than me." Charlie feigned surprise. "Really? Isn't the Smith family the biggest family in Oris Hill?" Warnia smiled. "That's just what people see on the surface. Take the new chairman of the M. Grand Group, for example. The M. Grand Group could buy and sell our entire Smith family. That person's power is on a whole other level." As she spoke, Warnia sighed. "I'd love to get to know this powerful man, but it's a shame he's so mysterious. There's no way to get an introduction." Warnia was telling the truth. She really did think the new chairman of the M. Grand Group was impossible to figure out. Someone who can buy a company worth hundreds of billions of dollars on a whim without even showing their face. It's clear their business empire is much bigger than just the M. Grand Group. Compared to that, the Smith family seemed a lot smaller. But she had no idea that the chairman of the M. Grand Group, the very person she wanted to befriend, was sitting right next to her. Charlie, of course, played it cool. He casually agreed with her a few times, but didn't give anything away. Warnia's car moved quickly and smoothly. Soon, she pulled up to a small courtyard by the river. The courtyard was private and tasteful. It looked simple and unassuming from the outside, but the inside was like a different world. There were small bridges over flowing water, beautiful gardens, and a series of gazebos. After she parked, someone was there to greet them and lead them inside. They walked through the yard and into a grand hall. Inside the banquet hall, there was a large mahogany dining table surrounded by several plush executive chairs. When they walked in, A white-haired older gentleman stood up and greeted Warnia. "Miss, you've arrived." Warnia looked a little flustered. She nodded and said, "Mr. Landon, what are you doing here?" The old man smiled slightly. "I heard you were coming, so I came to help out." Warnia nodded and then introduced him to Charlie. "Mr. Landon is our Smith family's appraiser. The family sent him along because they were worried I might make a mistake." Charlie nodded. It made sense. She was young, so the Smith family was probably worried about her. Landon glanced at Charlie, a look of disdain on his face. "This is the appraiser you invited, miss? He's so young. Does he even know anything about appraising?" Next to him, a grim-faced middle-aged man sneered. "Bringing some kid to back you up? Is there no one left in the Smith family? I could lend you one of my appraisers, you know." Warnia's expression turned cold. "Lucas Finley, this is Auris Hill, not San Francisco. It's not your place to run your mouth here." Lucas shrugged, looking unbothered. "The Smith family girl has quite a temper." "All right," a middle-aged man sitting across the table frowned. "We're all here for business, not to argue. Let's all calm down." He then gestured to Charlie. "And you, young man, please, take a seat with us." Warnia huffed and slowly sat down. Charlie took a seat as well. She leaned in close to his ear and whispered, "The one who just spoke, Lucas Finley, he's the richest man in San Francisco. Next to him is Wyatt Gilmore, a very powerful holistic design master. The one who broke it up is Christian Knox, the head of the Knox family here in Auris Hill. Their family is one of the most powerful around." Charlie then noticed Lucas Finley was sitting next to an older man in a turquoise suit. The man had a full head of silver hair and an almost otherworldly air about him. He sat with his eyes closed, giving off an intense vibe that warned everyone to keep their distance. He hadn't even opened his eyes since they'd arrived. At that point, Warnia stopped talking. Charlie was curious, but he knew he couldn't ask any more questions. Once everyone was seated, a portly man in expensive clothes sitting across the table. "Now that the bickering is over, let's get down to business and see the item. We're all busy people from important families. No need to drag this out." Christian Knox snorted coldly. "If this thing really does what you claim, if it can improve the harmony of a space, bring a sense of calm, and help one focus, then I don't care about $1 billion. The man glanced at him before placing a simple wooden box on the table. Inside the box was a red jade that seemed to glow, cut in an old-fashioned style. The moment he took it out, everyone felt a warm energy fill the hall. Christian's eyes lit up immediately. Warnia turned to old Landon. "Mr. Landon, what do you make of this jade?" Landon stared at it for a moment and then nodded. "It looks right. It's a stone from before the Thompson period. You can tell right away that it was kept and cared for by a devout priest for a very long time." Warnia nodded, then turned to Charlie. "What do you think, Mr. Charlie?" Charlie smirked. "It's a fake." Landon snorted and shot back. "You're just a kid. Who gave you the right to make accusations like that in front of everyone?" The old master, Wyatt Gilmore, sitting next to Lucas Finley, finally opened his eyes. He looked at the stone and asked, "May I take a closer look?" The man sneered. "Mr. Gilmore, are you joking? You don't know jade? This isn't some ordinary stone you can just pass around. My piece is from ancient times." Wyatt looked taken aback for a second. "My apologies. I spoke out of turn." With that, he leaned closer to the table and examined the item carefully. After a moment, he closed his eyes again. A long pause followed before he nodded and said, "I can't say if this jade is ancient or not, but it does affect the interior design and calm the mind. The effect is genuine." As soon as he said that, a buzz of excitement went through the room. To them, the history of the jade didn't really matter. What was important was what it could do. Landon smiled and said, "Mr. Gilmore is a man of good taste, unlike some who are all talk and no substance." Hearing this, Warnia couldn't help but feel a little disappointed in Charlie. It seemed he really was too young. Maybe he knew a thing or two about restoring historical artifacts, but when it came to appraising genuine antiques, he was clearly out of his league compared to these experienced men. Charlie just shook his head slightly when he saw this. If these people wanted to be fooled, he wasn't going to be the one to stop them. Seeing that everyone had finished their inspection, the man closed the box and said with a smile, "All right, since the item has been appraised, gentlemen, is it time to talk numbers?" Before he could even finish, Christian Knox jumped in. "I'll offer 100 million. 130 million, Lucas Finley added. The man looked over at Warnia, who was still quiet. "And Miss Smith?" he asked. Seeing Warnia hesitate, Landon quickly leaned in and whispered, "Miss, this is definitely a treasure. It's probably worth around 300 million. If you can get it for 200 million, you'll make a solid profit." Warnia felt a little conflicted. She glanced over at Charlie, but he just looked calm, not showing any emotion, which made her hesitate even more. Landon shot Charlie a cold look. He realized Warnia was holding back because of him. "A moment ago, Mr. Charlie claimed this jade is a fake," he said loudly. "I'd really like to know how he came to that conclusion. Let's all see what Mr. Charlie's methods are. If Charlie made a fool of himself, Warnia would know he was full of it and would feel confident enough to bid." Others around the table chimed in with scorn. "What does a kid like him know? He's just embarrassing himself. Yeah, who is he to even speak here? If you're not going to buy it, don't waste our time." Listening to the jeers, Charlie just looked at Landon with an amused expression and asked calmly, "Are you sure you want me to explain?" "Of course. Go on, say it. I'd love to see how you con artists usually pull off your tricks." Charlie shrugged. "I wasn't going to expose your scam, but since you keep asking, I can't say no." "A scam? Kid, are you saying we all missed it?" Wyatt, who had been quiet until now, said with a sneer. Charlie glanced at him and shot back, "You, in particular, are the most clueless one here." "Kid, you're asking for it!" Wyatt was furious. Charlie ignored him. "The stone is a real jade, so I'll give you liars that much." Then he continued, "But this stone isn't from the Thompson period, and it wasn't cared for by some devout priest. It's nothing more than a piece of Texas topaz. The quality is decent, so it has some value, but the price is $500,000 at most." "That's garbage! Can't you see the stone is red?" Landon scolded. Charlie continued, "The red color comes from erosion by manganese ore containing submanganate. Did you really think it was soaked in the blood of some important priest? Then what about that warm energy we're all feeling?" Christian frowned and asked eagerly. Charlie shook his head. "That part's even less clever. There's a plant from Africa. Its root is ground into a powder and dissolved in water. If you soak this stone in that water for about half a year, you'll naturally get this effect. It's not warm energy. It's a psychedelic effect, and it's easy to get rid of. Just heat the stone with a flame." "Kid, how dare you say such crazy things?" Hearing this, the fat man slammed his hand on the table and stood up. Lucas's expression darkened. He looked at the man and said, "Why don't we test it with a little heat?" The man was sweating bullets. "Test it? Why? This kid is obviously just making things up. Don't listen to his nonsense." Christian tapped his finger on the table. "If you heat it and the effect is still there, I'll pay for it. But if the effect is gone, well, you know the consequences. Even though my Knox family has had some recent troubles, we don't let people walk all over us." Warnia also nodded. "If Mr. Charlie is wrong, no harm done. A little heat won't damage the stone. But if Mr. Charlie is right, you'll have to give us an explanation today." The man suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. He couldn't risk offending any of those three. The whole setup was a scam cooked up by Landon to trick Warnia out of a lot of money, and they planned to split the profits. But out of nowhere, Charlie had shown up and ruined everything, exposing the whole trick in just a few words. The truth was, Charlie didn't actually know anything about jade. The only reason he could see through the scam at a glance was because of the mystic knowledge he possessed. For some reason, the moment he saw the stone, the answers just appeared in his mind. It seemed that identifying antique artifacts was a skill taught in the mystic texts. Seeing that the man was silent, Charlie sneered. "What's the matter? Feeling guilty? Cat got your tongue?" The man's face went pale, but he didn't say a word about whether he'd agree to the test. Charlie spoke up angrily. "Do you think staying silent is going to solve anything? You need to remember, this is Auris Hill. Every single person you've tried to scam here is wealthy. With a snap of their fingers, they could make you disappear without a trace. I suggest you get smart and start talking. Tell the truth. Otherwise, no one can save you." Warnia knew Charlie was playing mind games and immediately backed him up. With a stern expression, she added, "Our Smith family is a prominent family in Auris Hill with a reputation to uphold. If anyone dares to deceive us, we will teach them a lesson they won't forget. If we appear weak and let this slide, our family's reputation will suffer." The stout man was terrified. He knew how powerful the Smith family was. If he truly angered Warnia, he'd be a dead man in Auris Hill. Panicked, he desperately shouted at Landon, "Save me! This wasn't all my idea!" Landon's face paled, and he roared, "What nonsense are you spouting? You lied to the Smith family, and now you're trying to frame me? I'll kill you!" With that, Landon pulled a dagger from his pocket. A glint of cold steel flashed in his eyes as he lunged at the fat man. The man's eyes widened in horror. "Damn you! You flip-flop faster than a book. You're the one who told me Miss Warnia trusts your word completely. You said as long as you gave the okay, this thing would sell. You've ruined me." Warnia gave them both a cold look, then turned to Charlie. "Mr. Charlie, I'm sorry you had to see that. Thanks to you, we've avoided a huge mistake. Let's go. My family will send someone to deal with these people." Charlie nodded slightly. "All right, let's head back." With that, the two of them stood up to leave. Seeing Warnia was about to go, Landon was shocked. He forgot all about killing the man and dropped to his knees. "Miss, please forgive me. For all the years of hard work and loyalty I've given the Smith family, please forgive me this one time." Before Warnia could respond, Lucas Finley stood up and sneered. "You old fool, you're really asking for it. You tried to pull a fast one and score 2 or 3 billion. Did you really think the Smith family would let you off the hook?" Landon's face turned ashen as he slumped to the ground. Lucas continued, "Even if the Smith family forgives you, I, Lucas Finley, will never forgive you." Old Landon completely broke down crying. He was a broken man. Seeing this, Warnia shook her head slightly and said to Charlie, "I'm so sorry, Mr. Charlie. My family made a mistake. You had to witness a joke." Charlie replied calmly, "There are scoundrels everywhere. Miss Smith, you don't need to apologize." Just then, Lucas Finley, Wyatt Gilmore, and Christian Knox all came out. Seeing Charlie, Lucas immediately stepped forward. "Mr. Wade, thanks to you today. Otherwise, I would have been completely fooled by that thief." Wyatt, standing beside him, added with some shame, "Mr. Wade, you're a true hero. I can't believe I didn't see through their trick with the jade. I'm so ashamed." Christian also offered a respectful nod. "Mr. Charlie, Thanks to you, the three of us who were fighting over a fake would have been made fools of. Forget the money. We'd have been a laughingstock." Charlie smiled slightly and said calmly, "You're welcome. Miss Smith invited me here to verify the item's authenticity, so this was just me doing my job." After everyone finished speaking, Charlie got into the car with Warnia. As they drove off, silence fell over the courtyard behind them. But Charlie noticed that as soon as they had left, several men in black suits walked in quickly. It looked like Landon and the other man were in for a world of trouble. In the car, Warnia's expression was cold. She was furious that a scumbag from her own family, her own Uncle Landon, had tried to set her up in front of so many outsiders. If she had fallen for the scam, paid the money, and Landon had gotten away with it, the humiliation of being cheated would have disgraced both her and the entire Smith family. Fortunately, Charlie was there to uncover the truth just in time, saving her and her family from a huge loss. So, she took a bank card out of the glove box, handed it to Charlie, and said, "Mr. Charlie, there's $1 million on this card. The PIN is 6/8. It's just a small token of my appreciation. Please, accept it." As she spoke, she couldn't help sighing. Charlie clearly had some real talent. She couldn't understand why he'd choose to marry into such an insignificant family. If he went into the artifact authentication business for himself, he could build a fortune in just a few years. Charlie looked at the card and hesitated. $1 million wasn't a small amount, but for the Smith family, it was pocket change. It wasn't that Charlie looked down on $1 million. After all, he had over $9.9 billion in his own account, making this $1 million a drop in the bucket. What was the point of taking it? But then he thought about it. He wasn't supposed to be a billionaire. He was the live-in son-in-law of the Wilson family. For a guy like that to turn down $1 million would definitely make Warnia suspicious. So he took the card and said, "Thank you, Miss Smith." Warnia smiled slightly. "You're too kind, Mr. Charlie." After a moment, Warnia asked, "Where are you headed, Mr. Charlie?" Charlie smiled. "Just drop me off at the grocery store. I need to buy some things and go home to cook dinner." Warnia was stunned. She couldn't help but say, "I've heard things about you, Mr. Charlie. To be honest, with your skills, you shouldn't have to be a live-in son-in-law. You should come work at my antique gallery. I'll make you the chief appraiser. I'll give you a base salary of $1 million a year. What do you think?" Charlie waved his hand and smiled. "Thanks, but I'm fine. I'm used to eating the leftovers at home." Warnia was a little startled, and then she sighed. It seemed the rumors were true. Charlie really was just a son-in-law who was a kept man. She used to think he was just a loser, and that being a kept man was simply what a loser had to do to get by, which was understandable. But now it seemed he wasn't just a loser, but someone who chose to be a loser, a slacker by choice. She just couldn't accept that. Immediately, her opinion of Charlie shifted. Charlie knew she was looking down on him, but this was the best outcome for him. If everyone underestimated him, he'd be the one with the last laugh. As they passed the grocery store, Charlie got out and said goodbye to Warnia, then bought some vegetables and headed home. But as soon as he walked in the door, Charlie heard his father-in-law, Jacob, laughing like a madman and yelling, "Come here, everyone! Come see the treasure I found!" Claire was already home from work, sitting on the sofa reading some documents. She jumped up and said to Jacob, "Dad, you scared me half to death. Look at this." Jacob didn't notice Claire's expression at all. He happily held up a cup, showing it off proudly. "This is a ceramic cup I found at the antique market. I heard it was taken right from the coffin of an ancient emperor, and it's worth over $500,000. Over $500,000? Claire stood up suddenly and blurted out, "Dad, where did you get that kind of money?" Charlie couldn't believe it. He had just broken the antique jar that morning. Did his father-in-law really use the first opportunity he got to go back to the vintage market? Jacob clearly hadn't learned his lesson. Jacob laughed and said, mysteriously, I'm telling you, this dish is worth $500,000. Guess how much I paid for it? Claire hesitated for a moment, then guessed. 300,000? Nope. Guess again. Jacob waved his hand. 200,000? Not even close. Charlie, standing on the side, glanced at the dish and instantly knew it was a fake. He figured the thing would be lucky to be worth a few $100s. At this point, Jacob couldn't keep the suspense going any longer and said with a huge smile, I got it for $300. Isn't that amazing? Jacob laughed, the joy practically bursting out of him. Claire's eyes widened in surprise. She couldn't believe it. No way! You really only paid $300 for this dish? Elaine, her mother, heard the commotion and came out of the kitchen. Her face lit up with excitement. Is this dish really that valuable? It's not a fake, is it? Jacob puffed out his chest. Don't worry. The guy who sold it to me had no idea what he had. I even had someone look at it for me, and they said it was the real deal. Really? Elaine carefully picked up the dish, looking it over from every angle, smiling from ear to ear. Charlie stood aside, just smiling and nodding along, his expression calm. He had known from the start that the piece was a fake, but it was rare to see his father-in-law so happy, so he didn't have the heart to burst his bubble. Jacob was so excited, looking like a cat that got the cream. He said with delight, and this isn't even the whole set. The seller said he has the other pieces and he's bringing them in tomorrow. I'm going to try and buy the whole set. If I do, the value could multiply several times over. With any luck, we can pay off our $6 million debt. Charlie frowned and immediately stepped in. Dad, don't get carried away with this antique stuff. Getting this dish is enough. Let's just leave it at that. Jacob glared at him and snapped, What? Are you going to lecture me now? Charlie quickly said, No, do whatever you want. After that, he decided to stay out of it. Anyway, if Jacob got scammed, it wasn't Charlie's money. Claire also said, Dad, why are you buying so much? You can't eat or drink out of it. Besides, that price difference is huge. We don't even know if the dish is real. She didn't believe in things that were too good to be true. If you could buy something worth $500,000 for just $300, wouldn't everyone be a millionaire? Jacob got defensive when he heard them raining on his parade and said dismissively, You guys just don't get it. This is an antique, and it takes a sharp eye to spot a real treasure. As he spoke, he offended the cup and said to Claire, You don't need to worry about it. There were other people trying to buy it from me today. I might not even be able to get it tomorrow. Elaine said quickly, Well, if it's that valuable, you need to figure out how to sell it. Seeing her parents busy admiring the antique ceramic cup, Claire quietly pulled Charlie aside. I don't think this is legit, she whispered. It feels like a scam. Dad is definitely going back there tomorrow. Can you go with him to the vintage market and make sure he doesn't get ripped off? Charlie nodded. If Claire hadn't said anything, he wouldn't have gotten involved. But since his wife had asked, he couldn't just stand by and do nothing. The next day was the weekend. Jacob dragged Charlie along and they drove to the vintage market early in the morning. Jacob was full of energy. He waved to Charlie as he got out of the car. Come on, he said. I'm going to show you how to find a real bargain. With that, he strode into the vintage market. Charlie had to hurry to keep up, looking around as he walked. On weekends, the vintage market was much more crowded than usual. The antique shops on both sides were packed tightly together, and the vendors setting up stalls were so numerous that they blocked the whole street. There were also many vendors who just spread a plastic sheet on the ground, piled high with various antiques and artifacts, trying to attract customers. Charlie glanced around casually and saw almost nothing authentic. It was all junk, used by shady vendors to rip off clueless people and tourists. A lot of the tourists who bought the fakes were completely clueless, holding their imitations and grinning, thinking they'd gotten a great deal. Right here! Jacob stopped in front of a simple stall, unable to hide his excitement. A few tourists were standing by the stall, looking through the items. Jacob rushed into the crowd, afraid of missing out. Charlie took a look. The stall was just a piece of wax paper spread on the ground, with dozens of mud-stained, so-called antiques on it. Things like a racehorse figurine, presidential medallions, brass goblets, red coral bracelets, and some yellowed artistic penmanship and paintings. It was a dazzling display, but one casual look told Charlie that it was all fake. The stall owner was a thin, dark-skinned man wearing denim. His hair was greasy and a mess. He had a simple, honest-looking face and appeared a bit slow. "Look at this!" Jacob called to Charlie. He pointed to a colorful, wide-mouthed bottle and said in a low, "This is the bottle that goes with the 2 cups I bought. If I get this, I'll have the whole set, and the price will double." Charlie glanced at the bottle, picked it up, and looked at the owner. "How much is it?" The owner's eyes went wide, and he said, "My dad said at least 20,000, not a cent less." When Jacob heard this, he almost laughed. He quickly whispered to Charlie, "This guy has no idea what he's got. Let's buy it fast before someone else snags it." After saying that, he rushed to pay. Just then, Charlie quickly grabbed his hand and smiled. "Dad, this thing isn't worth 20,000. Let's not buy it." "What?" Jacob was stunned. "Then how much do you think it's worth?" Charlie held up his hand in front of the owner. "This much." "5,000?" the owner asked, staring. Charlie shook his head. "No, 50. The owner stared at Charlie for a few seconds like he was from another planet, then suddenly shouted, "Do you even know what you're looking at? This is a real antique from my grandfather. It's a genuine treasure. You city people are always trying to rip us off." Jacob got anxious and tugged on Charlie's arm. "Stop talking nonsense. You're going to ruin the deal." Charlie just smiled, picked up the bottle, and turned it over. He scraped away some of the yellow mud on the bottom with his finger, pointed to a tiny slit, and said, "Dad, look at this." The slit was extremely small. If Charlie hadn't pointed it out, nobody would have ever noticed it. Inside the slit, a row of very small letters was visible. "Made in the United States." Jacob was stunned. His mouth fell open, and he couldn't react for a long time. Suddenly, he snapped out of it, his face turning red. He pointed at the owner and yelled, You're a cheat!" Charlie took the bottle, showed it to the owner, and said, "The manufacturer wouldn't dare to openly fake an antique. You put this label on here on purpose. You're pretty clever, knowing you could cover it up with mud. So let me ask you, $30. Will you sell it? This?" The owner was stunned for a second. Suddenly, the honest look vanished from his face, and he slapped his forehead with a grin. "Gentlemen, I was in a rush this morning, and I guess I grabbed the wrong bottle." "You grabbed the wrong one," Charlie smiled, picking up a muddy hip flask. He dug into the mud on the opening, held it up to the sun, and said seriously, "This one isn't wrong. It was made in Sioux City." On the hip flask, there was a row of small, transparent characters, made by Amish workshops. I can't read. Who knows what's written on it? The owner saw he wasn't making a sale. He sneered and started to wrap up his waxed canvas, ready to make a run for it. This time, Jacob was completely aware of what was happening. He was furious, realizing he'd been played for a fool. He grabbed the owner and roared, "You liar! Give me back my money!" "What money? I've never seen you before." The owner struggled, and fake pennies and marble stallions kept falling out of the waxed canvas he was holding. One of the marble stallions hit the ground without breaking. It looked like it was made of hard plastic. "If you don't give me my money back, I'm calling the cops," Jacob screamed, his lungs burning with anger. As they wrestled, something fell out of the owner's arms. The moment it hit the ground, Charlie frowned and stared at it. It was a fist-sized white pebble, just like one you'd find on a riverbank, gray and dull. But there was one difference. This pebble had the words peace and wealth carved into it. The lettering was crude and poorly done, clearly carved by hand. You could find stones like this at any tourist trap, and they weren't worth anything. No wonder the owner hadn't put it out for sale. However, Charlie strode over and picked up the stone. Suddenly, he felt a rush of energy. He had felt a strange aura coming from this thing. It wasn't really an aura, but more like a kind of energy, a magnetic field, that was strongly pulling him in. Charlie knew this had to be the spiritual energy he'd read about in the mystic knowledge. Reiki was a mysterious, long-lost energy. It couldn't just transform a person's physical health. It could be cultivated to produce effects that seemed impossible to ordinary people. Charlie was thrilled. He calmly weighed the pebble in his hand and asked, "Is this yours?" The owner froze for a moment, then nodded subconsciously. "Yes." "How much for the stone?" Jacob was surprised and asked, "Why are you buying that piece of junk? Don't you know this crook sells nothing but fakes? It's just a rock. I'll buy it and use it as a paperweight or something," Charlie said with a smile. The owner took the opportunity to break away from Jacob's grip and sneered at Charlie. "You really want to buy it?" Charlie nodded. "I do." The owner suddenly perked up and said grandly, "My friend, you have a good eye. Don't let its appearance fool you. This pebble has an extraordinary origin. It was a paperweight from the embellished case in Lord Quin's study." Charlie didn't have time for his long-winded story and interrupted impatiently. "Spare me the sales pitch and get to the point." The owner laughed and said, "Ha, since you're an expert, then 20,000. Charlie said dismissively, "Are you crazy?" "One price, 300. If you don't sell it, I'm calling the police and reporting you for fraud." 300. The owner sighed and said with a dry smile, "All right, friend, you know your stuff. 300 it is." Charlie smiled slightly and closed his hand around the stone. Jacob was confused. He had no idea why Charlie would buy such a worthless rock. Just as he was about to ask, a sharp voice cut in from nearby. "Hey, that's a nice stone. My boss wants it." Hearing the voice, Charlie frowned and looked up. He saw a young man in a white linen suit, black shoes, and a wristful of bracelets walking toward them. Even though it was broad daylight, he was wearing a pair of antique gold-rimmed glasses with round black lenses. The young man was followed by 4 or 5 bodyguards. Compared to him, his bodyguards looked way more intimidating, and everyone nearby quickly scattered to avoid trouble. "Well, if it isn't Mr. Stephen." As soon as the owner saw the young man, his face lit up and a stream of compliments poured out. "Mr. Stephen, why didn't you give me a heads up that you were coming today? I would have rolled out the red carpet for you." "All right, cut the crap. I'm just looking around today." The young man waved his hand impatiently. He strode forward, glanced at the stone in Charlie's hand, and looked up at the owner. "Irvin, wrap this stone up for me. My dad needs a paperweight for his desk. This will be perfect." The owner, Irvin Jones, forced a smile and shot a pained look at Charlie before turning back to flatter Stephen. "Mr. Stephen, this is really awkward. This gentleman just bought the stone." "Honestly, it's nothing special. It's just a paperweight, that's it. I have much better items set aside just for you. Why bother with a worthless rock? Only the best is good enough for a man of your status." So the owner's name was Irvin Jones, and he clearly knew this young man. Charlie had to admit he was impressed with Irvin's sales pitch. The guy could talk his way out of anything. Irvin quickly pulled out a faux marble stallion, his words tumbling out. "Mr. Stephen, this was a favorite of a former first lady. Look, the material is flawless, top quality. Let's not haggle. For you, Mr. Stephen, I'll give you the same price you paid for that ceramic cup yesterday. 9,000, and it's yours." Jacob was speechless. The same kind of fake ceramic cup he almost bought for 300, and this kid, Stephen, had actually paid 9,000 for one. "Cut the crap," Stephen said impatiently, kicking Irvin aside. He said arrogantly, "I want this stone. Give it to me. I'll give you 20,000 for it." When Irvin heard 20,000, his eyes lit up. He turned to Charlie and said, "Hey, buddy, how about you let Mr. Stephen have it?" Charlie frowned and said coldly, "I already bought it, and I'm not interested in selling." "Who said anything about selling? You haven't paid yet, so it belongs to whoever pays first," Stephen shot back. Stephen said impatiently. He pulled a wallet from his jacket, yanked out a thick stack of bills, and slapped them against Irvin's chest. "Here's 20,000. Keep the rest. It's mine." Irvin's eyes lit up. He quickly gathered the cash and smiled at Charlie. "Hey, buddy, I also have a beautiful crystal paperweight from a famous collection. It's much better than this one. Why don't you take that one instead?" Charlie just smiled. "Irvin, you don't need to try and pull one over on me, right? I bought this paperweight first, and I'm not interested in giving it to someone else." Seeing that Charlie wouldn't budge, Irvin was in a tough spot. After all, according to the rules of the antique business, the first person to claim an item gets it. If he broke that rule, word would spread, and he'd be run out of the vintage market. Irvin had no choice but to turn back to Stephen. He nodded and said, "Mr. Stephen, this paperweight is really nothing special. I have much better things back at my shop." Before he could finish, Stephen kicked him hard in the side and cursed. "Getting bold, are we? I've bought plenty from you. Now you're siding with some broke nobody over me?" Irvin fell to the ground, clutching his side and groaning. He complained, "Mr. Stephen, if he won't give it to me, there's nothing I can do." As he spoke, he gave Charlie a desperate look, trying to signal him to just give up the stone. Just one look at Charlie's simple clothes told Irvin everything he needed to know. This guy had no money, no power, and no influence. But Stephen was different. He was one of those infamous rich kids born with a silver spoon in his mouth who had never worried about money a day in his life. Irvin didn't want to tick off Stephen, but he also didn't want to break the rules, so he kept shooting desperate looks at Charlie. Charlie had noticed Irvin's signals a while ago, but he ignored them and said no. Irvin was completely helpless. All he could do was stay on the ground and groan, "Ugh," hoping Stephen wouldn't take his anger out on him again. "Look at you, you useless waste," Stephen cursed, his eyebrows knitted in anger. He tilted his head and glared at Charlie. He waved the cash in his hand. "You paid 300 for it. I'll give you 30,000. Now hand it over." The crowd gasped. All eyes were on Charlie, filled with envy. The price had jumped 100 times in a matter of seconds. That was some serious profit. Besides, anyone with half a brain could see it was just a regular rock, probably picked up from a riverbed. There were tons of stones like that lying around. Jacob was getting a little excited too. After all, if Charlie sold it, they'd make back the more than $2,000 he lost yesterday and still come out ahead. Charlie looked up, smiled at Stephen, and said, "Like I said before, it's not for sale. You could offer me 300,000, and my answer would still be the same." "You!" Stephen's face twisted with anger, a dangerous glint in his eyes. With everyone watching, Charlie had just shot him down in public. It was a total embarrassment. "You punk! You're really asking for trouble, aren't you?" Stephen sneered. "Go on. Ask anyone in this vintage market. Is there anything Stephen Knox wants that he can't buy? You're selling it to me today. Whether you want to or not, you're selling it." After Stephen finished speaking, he waved his hand. His bodyguards instantly moved in, surrounding Charlie. The faces in the crowd went pale. Even Jacob was stunned. The Knox family of Orris Hill. They were a powerhouse, way bigger and more influential than Gerald's family. No wonder Stephen Knox dropped $9,000 on a fake ceramic cup. He didn't even blink. Guys like that don't care about the money, whether it's real or not. He's just buying it for the thrill of it. The bodyguards closed in on Charlie, looking menacing. Jacob was scared of confrontation. He shot Charlie a look, silently begging him to just hand the stone over to Stephen. Charlie's expression was calm. He glanced at the bodyguards surrounding him and said, "I'll say it again. It's not for sale. And if you're thinking about trying to take it by force, let me be clear. No one takes what's mine. That includes you." "What about me?" Stephen sneered, tilting his chin up arrogantly. "Let me tell you something. I'm the king around here. And you're just some nobody who's got a death wish picking a fight with me." Seeing Stephen's arrogance, the crowd, anxious, held their breath. They all thought the same thing. This guy, Charlie, was crazy to stand up to Stephen. He was going to get crushed. Charlie remained calm, a slight smile on his face. "You're in the antique business, right? Have you ever thought about the most important thing in this line of work?" Stephen asked. "And what would that be?" Charlie. "The rules, of course." He then raised his voice, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. "The rule is first come, first served. If you go around strong-arming people, who's going to want to do business with you? When that happens, Stephen Knox, you'll be a pariah in this market. No one will touch you with a 10-foot pole." The moment the words left his mouth, Stephen froze, his face flashing with anger. It was true. There was an unwritten code in the antique world. He liked to project an image of a sophisticated collector, so he knew the rules perfectly well. If word of this got out, the shops he frequented would probably start avoiding him, afraid of alienating other customers. Stephen couldn't believe it. Charlie had backed him into a corner with just a few words. He glared at Charlie, fighting the urge to wipe that smirk off his face. But he forced himself to swallow his anger. He gritted his teeth and said, "You really think that little rock of yours makes you somebody? Let me tell you something. Antiques aren't for everyone. You're a broke nobody. You should go back to whatever hole you crawled out of and stop polluting the air here." With a dark expression, Stephen rolled up his sleeves and shoved his arm in Charlie's face. "Open your eyes and take a good look. This string of bloodstone gems cost me $1.5 million, all the way from the Sunbelt. Have you ever seen anything this beautiful?" The bracelet on Stephen's wrist was a stunning deep red, catching the sunlight and glowing. It was so beautiful that the people in the crowd couldn't help but stare. Irvin stared at the bracelet, swallowing hard. "Wow," he breathed. "That's the real deal." "Of course it is." Stephen puffed up his chest, clearly proud of the reaction he was getting. He shot Charlie a contemptuous look, then unbuttoned his collar and pulled out a crystal amulet hanging from a cord around his neck. "Now look at this. This piece was a gift for my coming-of-age party. It dates back to the Gilded Age. It was blessed by 88 high-ranking holy men who prayed over it to the Creator for 108 straight days. It's worth $3 million. Hearing the incredible story and value of this crystal amulet, the crowd pushed forward, craning their necks to get a better look. Irvin was practically hyperventilating with excitement. His eyes were glued to the amulet, his expression pure greed, as if he wanted to snatch it and swallow it whole. Stephen held the amulet out and sneered at Charlie. "The rich collect art. The poor collect dust. You're a peasant who can't even afford decent clothes, and you think you can play in the world of antiques? It's pathetic, really." His tone was dripping with irony. The people in the crowd glanced at Charlie. He really didn't look like he came from money. He was wearing a plain white t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers, like any other young working guy. Stephen's outfit, on the other hand, looked simple at first glance. But anyone with a trained eye could see that his clothes were all custom, handmade pieces. From head to toe, he was wearing at least 6 figures worth of apparel. Charlie watched Stephen's smug display and found the guy incredibly amusing. He wasn't a bad person, just a short-sighted, spoiled rich kid. So Charlie looked at him and asked with a smile, "You're a rich guy, huh? That bracelet looks really nice, I'll give you that. But it's a fake." Stephen was stunned for a second, then he roared, "You're talking nonsense. There's no way this bracelet is fake. If you don't believe me, go ask any of the antique shop owners around here," Charlie said with a shrug. It's one thing to have money to throw around on antiques, but you also have to know what you're doing. When a clueless person tries to act like an expert, everyone else just sees them as an easy target, nothing more. Stephen was furious. Hearing Charlie mock his intelligence was the last straw. He snapped, "If this bracelet is genuine, you get down on your knees and admit you're wrong to me, right here on the spot. How about that?" "Okay," Charlie agreed, his attitude completely relaxed. Mistaking artificial bloodstone for a real bloodstone gem? I have to say, you've really got a knack for this. Stephen's face flushed at the insult. He spun around to face the crowd that had gathered. "Jones and Grant, you two are going to appraise this bracelet for me and tell me if it's real or not." The two men looked at each other, clearly embarrassed. Appraising antiques, especially calling something a fake, was a touchy subject. It was a good way to make enemies and lose business. "Stephen, our expertise is a bit limited. We can't really say for sure." Stephen's voice was sharp with anger. "Don't think I don't know what you're up to. Just give me a proper appraisal. I won't cause any trouble for you, whether it's real or not. But if you try to mess with me, I'll get a second opinion later, and if I find out you lied, you'll regret it." "Please, don't be angry, Stephen," the two men said, stepping forward, clearly rattled. Nobody who did business in the vintage market dared to cross Stephen Knox. So the two antique shop owners had no choice but to bite the bullet and examine the bloodstone gem. A few minutes later, one of the owners gave a nervous, dry smile. "Stephen, that young man was right. Your bracelet." "Spit it out," Stephen sneered. The owner, terrified, blurted out, "Your bracelet, it's made of artificial bloodstone." As soon as the words were out, Stephen's face went from pale to beet red, as if he'd just been slapped in front of everyone. He swallowed hard, trying to contain his rage. The two shop owners were so scared that they immediately retreated back into the crowd, hoping to disappear. Charlie smiled. "So, do you believe me now?" Spending $1.5 million on a bunch of artificial stones. Stephen Knox, you really are a rich man. "You got me this time," Stephen said. "So what if it's $1.5 million? You think I care about that money? Even if the bracelet is fake, my crystal amulet is absolutely real, 100% genuine." When it came to this amulet, Stephen was 100% confident. He had, after all, hired an expert to appraise it. This was a genuine deal, dating all the way back to the Gilded Age. Charlie snorted. "Wearing something that's cursed like it's a prized possession? You've got to be the biggest fool in the world." Stephen roared, a vein throbbing on his forehead. "What are you talking about? That's insane!" Charlie said calmly. "You're wearing something that dangerous right against your skin. You're lucky you aren't dead already." Stephen's expression was grim. But after what happened with the bracelet, he wasn't so sure if Charlie was bluffing. He stared at him and demanded, "What makes you say that?" Charlie said, "Look at the shape of this amulet. When you got it, did you even bother to research what crystal pieces with this specific shape were used for?" Stephen yelled, a bit of his confidence returning. "The shape represents good fortune, and anyone who deals in crystals knows that. I know a lot more about spoon in his mouth, who had never worried about money a day in his life. Irvin didn't want to tick off Stephen, but he also didn't want to break the rules, so he kept shooting desperate looks at Charlie. Charlie had noticed Irvin's signals a while ago, but he ignored them and said no. Irvin was completely helpless. All he could do was stay on the ground and groan, "Ugh," hoping Stephen wouldn't take his anger out on him again. "Look at you, you useless waste," Stephen cursed, his eyebrows knitted in anger. He tilted his head and glared at Charlie. He waved the cash in his hand. "You paid $300 for it. I'll give you $30,000. Now hand it over." The crowd gasped. All eyes were on Charlie, filled with envy. The price had jumped 100 times in a matter of seconds. That was some serious profit. Besides, anyone with half a brain could see it was just a regular rock, probably picked up from a riverbed. There were tons of stones like that lying around. Jacob was getting a little excited too. After all, if Charlie sold it, they'd make back the more than $2,000 he lost yesterday and still come out ahead. Charlie looked up, smiled at Stephen, and said, "Like I said before, it's not for sale. You could offer me $300,000, and my answer would still be the same." "You!" Stephen's face twisted with anger, a dangerous glint in his eyes. With everyone watching, Charlie had just shot him down in public. It was a total embarrassment. "You punk! You're really asking for trouble, aren't you?" Stephen sneered. "Go on. Ask anyone in this vintage market. Is there anything Stephen Knox wants that he can't buy? You're selling it to me today. Whether you want to or not, you're selling it." After Stephen finished speaking, he waved his hand. His bodyguards instantly moved in, surrounding Charlie. The faces in the crowd went pale. Even Jacob was stunned. The Knox family of Orris Hill. They were a powerhouse, way bigger and more influential than Gerald's family. No wonder Stephen Knox dropped $9,000 on a fake ceramic cup. He didn't even blink. Guys like that don't care about the money, whether it's real or not. He's just buying it for the thrill of it. The bodyguards closed in on Charlie, looking menacing. Jacob was scared of confrontation. He shot Charlie a look, silently begging him to just hand the stone over to Stephen. Charlie's expression was calm. He glanced at the bodyguards surrounding him and said, "I'll say it again. It's not for sale. And if you're thinking about trying to take it by force, let me be clear. No one takes what's mine. That includes you." "What about me?" Stephen sneered, tilting his chin up arrogantly. "Let me tell you something. I'm the king around here. And you're just some nobody who's got a death wish picking a fight with me." Seeing Stephen's arrogance, the crowd, anxious, held their breath. They all thought the same thing. This guy, Charlie, was crazy to stand up to Stephen. He was going to get crushed. Charlie remained calm, a slight smile on his face. "You're in the antique business, right? Have you ever thought about the most important thing in this line of work?" Stephen asked. "And what would that be?" Charlie. "The rules, of course." He then raised his voice, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. "The rule is first come, first served. If you go around strong-arming people, who's going to want to do business with you? When that happens, Stephen Knox, you'll be a pariah in this market. No one will touch you with a 10-foot pole." The moment the words left his mouth, Stephen froze, his face flashing with anger. It was true. There was an unwritten code in the antique world. He liked to project an image of a sophisticated collector, so he knew the rules perfectly well. If word of this got out, the shops he frequented would probably start avoiding him, afraid of alienating other customers. Stephen couldn't believe it. Charlie had backed him into a corner with just a few words. He glared at Charlie, fighting the urge to wipe that smirk off his face. But he forced himself to swallow his anger. He gritted his teeth and said, "You really think that little rock of yours makes you somebody? Let me tell you something. Antiques aren't for everyone. You're a broke nobody. You should go back to whatever hole you crawled out of and stop polluting the air here." With a dark expression, Stephen rolled up his sleeves and shoved his arm in Charlie's face. "Open your eyes and take a good look. This string of bloodstone gems cost me $1.5 million, all the way from the Sunbelt. Have you ever seen anything this beautiful?" The bracelet on Stephen's wrist was a stunning deep red, catching the sunlight and glowing. It was so beautiful that the people in the crowd couldn't help but stare. Irvin stared at the bracelet, swallowing hard. "Wow," he breathed. "That's the real deal." "Of course it is." Stephen puffed up his chest, clearly proud of the reaction he was getting. He shot Charlie a contemptuous look, then unbuttoned his collar and pulled out a crystal amulet hanging from a cord around his neck. "Now look at this. This piece was a gift for my coming-of-age party. It dates back to the Gilded Age. It was blessed by 88 high-ranking holy men who prayed over it to the Creator for 108 straight days. It's worth $3 million. Hearing the incredible story and value of this crystal amulet, the crowd pushed forward, craning their necks to get a better look. Irvin was practically hyperventilating with excitement. His eyes were glued to the amulet, his expression pure greed, as if he wanted to snatch it and swallow it whole. Stephen held the amulet out and sneered at Charlie. "The rich collect art, the poor collect dust. You're a peasant who can't even afford decent clothes, and you think you can play in the world of antiques? It's pathetic, really." His tone was dripping with irony. The people in the crowd glanced at Charlie. He really didn't look like he came from money. He was wearing a plain white t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers, like any other young working guy. Stephen's outfit, on the other hand, looked simple at first glance. But anyone with a trained eye could see that his clothes were all custom, handmade pieces. From head to toe, he was wearing at least 6 figures worth of apparel. Charlie watched Stephen's smug display and found the guy incredibly amusing. He wasn't a bad person, just a short-sighted, spoiled rich kid. So Charlie looked at him and asked with a smile, "You're a rich guy, huh? That bracelet looks really nice, I'll give you that. But it's a fake." Stephen was stunned for a second, then he roared, "You're talking nonsense. There's no way this bracelet is fake. If you don't believe me, go ask any of the antique shop owners around here," Charlie said with a shrug. "It's one thing to have money to throw around on antiques, but you also have to know what you're doing. When a clueless person tries to act like an expert, everyone else just sees them as an easy target, nothing more." Stephen was furious. Hearing Charlie mock his intelligence was the last straw. He snapped, "If this bracelet is genuine, you get down on your knees and admit you're wrong to me, right here on the spot. How about that?" "Okay," Charlie agreed, his attitude completely relaxed. "Mistaking artificial bloodstone for a real bloodstone gem? I have to say, you've really got a knack for this." Stephen's face flushed at the insult. He spun around to face the crowd that had gathered. "Jones and Grant, you two are going to appraise this bracelet for me and tell me if it's real or not." The two men looked at each other, clearly embarrassed. Appraising antiques, especially calling something a fake, was a touchy subject. It was a good way to make enemies and lose business. "Stephen, our expertise is a bit limited. We can't really say for sure." Stephen's voice was sharp with anger. "Don't think I don't know what you're up to. Just give me a proper appraisal. I won't cause any trouble for you, whether it's real or not. But if you try to mess with me, I'll get a second opinion later, and if I find out you lied, you'll regret it." "Please, don't be angry, Stephen," the two men said, stepping forward, clearly rattled. Nobody who did business in the vintage market dared to cross Stephen Knox. So the two antique shop owners had no choice but to bite the bullet and examine the bloodstone gem. A few minutes later, one of the owners gave a nervous, dry smile. "Stephen, that young man was right. Your bracelet." "Spit it out," Stephen sneered. The owner, terrified, blurted out, "Your bracelet, it's made of artificial bloodstone." As soon as the words were out, Stephen's face went from pale to beet red, as if he'd just been slapped in front of everyone. He swallowed hard, trying to contain his rage. The two shop owners were so scared that they immediately retreated back into the crowd, hoping to disappear. Charlie smiled. "So, do you believe me now?" Spending $1.5 million on a bunch of artificial stones. Stephen Knox, you really are a rich man. "You got me this time," Stephen said. "So what if it's $1.5 million? You think I care about that money? Even if the bracelet is fake, my crystal amulet is absolutely real, 100% genuine." When it came to this amulet, Stephen was 100% confident. He had, after all, hired an expert to appraise it. This was a genuine deal, dating all the way back to the Gilded Age. Charlie snorted. "Wearing something that's cursed like it's a prized possession? You've got to be the biggest fool in the world." Stephen roared, a vein throbbing on his forehead. "What are you talking about? That's insane!" Charlie said calmly. "You're wearing something that dangerous right against your skin. You're lucky you aren't dead already." Stephen's expression was grim. But after what happened with the bracelet, he wasn't so sure if Charlie was bluffing. He stared at him and demanded, "What makes you say that?" Charlie said, "Look at the shape of this amulet. When you got it, did you even bother to research what crystal pieces with this specific shape were used for?" Stephen yelled, a bit of his confidence returning. "The shape represents good fortune, and anyone who deals in crystals knows that. I know a lot more about this than some broke loser like you. You don't know a thing." Seeing Stephen was still being stubborn, Charlie just shook his head and sneered. "You don't even know the difference between a decorative amulet and a ceremonial one? There's an old saying, 'Seal the 9 gates with gold and diamonds, and the mortal form shall not perish.' You must have heard of that, right? What's that about gold and diamonds and dead people?" Stephen asked, completely lost. Charlie looked at him like he was a lost cause, shaking his head. "You really don't know? Have you ever heard of a preservation stone?" What? A preservation stone?" Stephen was even more confused, staring at Charlie with a blank expression. Even though Stephen liked antiques, he never bothered to actually study them. He just bought whatever people told him was valuable so he could go out and show it off. "You idiot!" Charlie sneered. "A preservation stone is the ceremonial stone used to plug up the 9 gates of a dead person. You know, the 7 openings on the head, ears, nose, mouth, and eyes, plus the other 2. "Dead?" Stephen's mouth fell open, his eyes wide with shock. He looked down at the amulet hanging around his neck in disbelief. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end. "It was from a dead person?" Charlie said mockingly, "It looks like you really don't get it. The amulet in your hand was used to plug a dead person's, well, their rear exit, the so-called airlock door. And you're wearing it around your neck. Don't you think it stinks?" Stephen was speechless. He stared at the amulet in his hand, and a wave of nausea washed over him. That amulet was actually stuffed in that place, and he'd worn it as a good luck charm around his neck for 3 years. The worst part was, he liked it so much he would often put it in his mouth to fiddle with it. Did that mean he had basically been tasting ancient filth? Stephen couldn't take it anymore. He bent over and started retching. The crowd, which had been eager to see what was happening, now just stared at him with contempt. Some of them were clearly enjoying his misery, mocking him for being so clueless and spending a fortune on something so disgusting. Charlie added coldly, "On top of that, This piece of crystal has been steeped in necrotic energy for centuries. It's absorbed a powerful, fierce aura. If you keep wearing it, you'll be dead within a year." The second Charlie finished speaking, the crowd around Stephen scrambled back, as if afraid of getting contaminated by his bad vibes. Irvin, who was standing right next to Stephen, shot to the back of the crowd. Even though he was a two-bit hustler who usually just swindled people, he'd been around enough shady dealings to know that Charlie wasn't just making things up. Stephen was terrified. He looked up at Charlie, stunned. Charlie's face was cold as he snorted, "You've been having a rough year, haven't you? Had some sort of violent incident? Like a car crash, maybe?" Stephen stared at Charlie, completely dumbstruck. He had been having a string of bad luck this year. He'd been in a car accident right at the start of the year. If he hadn't been driving that reinforced Hummer, he would have been dead for sure. The other driver was killed instantly. Stephen himself broke a couple of ribs and spent 2 weeks in the hospital recovering. Stephen broke out in a cold sweat. He tore the amulet from his neck and hurled it as far away as he could. The crowd backed away even further, afraid of getting cursed. Seeing Stephen's panicked reaction, Charlie sneered to himself. He knew that if he hadn't said anything, Stephen would have kept wearing it and would have been dead before the year was out. Seeing Stephen was still being stubborn, Charlie just shook his head and sneered. "Who are you?" Stephen gritted his teeth, glaring at Charlie. This person knew way too much. Was he sent by an enemy? "I'm someone you can't afford to mess with," Charlie said coldly, and turned to leave. When Stephen saw him leaving, he figured Charlie was trying to escape and roared, "Get him! He didn't just mess with me by chance. Someone must have sent him." Can't afford to mess with. In Eris Hill City, there's no one I can't mess with. Get him! Break his legs and find out who sent him to cause trouble for the Knox family. He was convinced Charlie had been sent by a business rival. How else could he know the details of his car accident? A few bodyguards moved instantly, blocking Charlie's path. The other two strode right up to Jacob and reached out to grab him. Jacob was terrified. He never imagined that a simple trip to buy an antique would end up like this. Just as a bodyguard was about to grab Jacob, Charlie's expression turned icy. He shot a kick at the big guy in front of him, closed the distance to Jacob in a couple of quick steps, and slammed a punch into the other bodyguard's face. The bodyguard who'd been reaching for Jacob staggered back, his nose gushing blood, his hands flying to his face. The other bodyguard, seeing Charlie fight back, quickly pulled out an electric baton and swung it viciously at him. Jacob screamed, terrified. "Charlie, get out of there!" Before he could finish, Charlie moved with incredible speed, dodging the swing. He twisted, grabbing the bodyguard's left wrist with his free hand and yanking hard. Before the bodyguard could react, Charlie flipped him over his shoulder, slamming him onto the ground. The man lay there, groaning in pain, unable to get up. Jacob was speechless. He could hardly recognize the young man standing in front of him as his own son-in-law. Since when was he so skilled at fighting? Charlie bent down, picked up the fallen electric baton, and gave it a test squeeze. He looked at the remaining bodyguards and said, "Who's next? Come on." The crowd watched in stunned silence, their eyes locked on Charlie. Irvin was also floored, staring at Charlie and muttering, "Dude, that was amazing." He felt lucky he hadn't pissed Charlie off earlier. One of those takedowns would have left him in pieces. Jacob snapped out of it and asked Charlie, his voice full of shock, "Charlie, where did you learn to do that?" "This," Charlie smiled and said, "Haha, Dad, back when I first started working, I used to get bored at home and just watch TV. You know how they have those fighting shows on every morning? I picked it up from there." The truth was, Charlie had trained in close-quarters combat since he was a kid, the real deal. After all, he was a descendant of a Wade family branch. But to hide his identity, he obviously couldn't tell Jacob the truth. What really surprised Charlie, though, was that his strength seemed to have gotten a major boost. He felt several times more powerful than usual. He figured it had to be the mystic scriptures. And that energy stone from before, some of its power had entered his body, and he felt that his overall physical condition had improved a lot. A murmur of awe went through the crowd. A guy with skills like that was more powerful than any fighter from the Oris Hill City Fight Club, and he learned it all from TV. That kind of self-taught talent was just incredible. He learned it from TV? Irvin's eyes went wide. He looked at Charlie with a newfound admiration and a sly grin. "Hey, big guy, can you tell me what channel you were watching? I'd love to learn too." Charlie glanced at Irvin and said calmly, "The Arena." The people there actually believed Charlie. They were all itching to get home and check out that show. Stephen, who had been standing there looking stunned, finally snapped out of it, and his face was a mask of pure embarrassment. This was so humiliating. He'd paid a ton of money for these bodyguards. They were supposed to be top fighters from the martial arts center. And now they'd been taken down in the blink of an eye by some random guy who claimed he learned to fight from watching TV. Stephen didn't know anything about martial arts, so he couldn't tell how skilled Charlie really was. But his bodyguards weren't idiots. An expert knows an expert when they see one. They could tell right away that Charlie wasn't bluffing. In fact, he wasn't even using his full strength. This was definitely someone they couldn't afford to mess with. So, the bodyguards just stood there, not daring to move, looking at Charlie with a mix of fear and respect. Jacob watched from the sidelines, completely clueless about fighting. He thought Charlie's moves were pretty basic, just a wrist grab here, a shoulder throw there. He just figured Charlie was a little stronger than average, not realizing he was witnessing real skill. Charlie turned to Stephen with a slight smile. "So, are you going to come quietly, or do I have to come get you?" "You, stay away from me." Stephen was so scared that he started sweating, and he instinctively took a step back. Seeing how terrified he was, Charlie just scoffed and started walking toward him. Stephen's eyes were wide with terror as he scrambled backward. "If that guy throws me like that, I'll be in the hospital for at least half a month." Just then, a black luxury car pulled around the corner and stopped a short distance away. The driver hopped out and opened the back door for his passenger. Stephen's face lit up when he saw the car. He yelled, "Sister! Someone's beating me up! Help me!" Charlie looked up as the crowd parted, making way for a woman in black, form-fitting athletic wear, who was walking toward him. The athletic wear hugged her figure perfectly, and the angry look on her face gave her an intimidating air. "That's Stephen's sister, Skylar Knox," someone in the crowd suddenly shouted, and a buzz went through the onlookers. Stephen cried out, "Sister, this guy beat me up! You gotta teach him a lesson!" When Skylar Knox got closer, she glanced at the bodyguards on the ground, then fixed a cold stare on Charlie. "You did this to them?" Charlie answered flatly, unfazed. "I did. What about it?" Skylar sneered. "Nothing. Just apologize to my brother, now. And if I don't, then I'll make you apologize." Before she'd even finished speaking, Skylar unleashed a whip-fast kick aimed right at Charlie's head. Charlie was a little surprised. This woman was way more skilled than the bodyguards he'd just dealt with. Her kick was packed with power and speed. She was clearly a serious fighter. Stephen watched the scene unfold with a smug grin. He was sure his sister was about to destroy this guy. His sister had been training in martial arts for years and an expert. Even some serious martial arts masters were no match for her. But in the next second, Stephen's eyes went wide with shock.